Hey, welcome to the Redacted Apostate. My name is Nicole,
And I'm Carl.
and today we are going to finish our discussion about Tim Ballard. We started it last week with the visions of glory to set the stage for how someone like Tim Ballard could rise to power the way he has.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to focus just on Tim Ballard. And if you don't know, he is a Mormon Latter-day Saint. I think he's been excommunicated since, but we'll get more into that.
Mm.
He rose to power by forming an organization called O.U.R, which is something about the Underground Railroad. We'll just call it O.U.R.
Yeah. I don't even know what the O stands for.
Organization, Underground Railroad.
Sure. Sure. Operative? Is it operative?
Operative,
Because he loves that word.
operative, Underground Railroad. I know I find the name offensive, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's an offensive name. I
Yeah.
find that he would call it that just kinda gross, but, it when you
I don't know if I do because if I was get into the kind of the fundraising of it, because that's what his major purpose seems to be is a lot of fundraising. It's something that people can equate to something that's happened positive that has helped people. So it's a branding thing to
it's a
me.
branding, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know, it just feels gross.
Well, I think it's because you know the guy or you know about
Yeah, I've never met Tim
him.
Ballard. I don't know who this weird cult person is. I've never read any of his books, and I will not read any of his books
Yeah, we
because
don't read books about people that have joined cults or
yeah.
formed cults. No, let me rephrase. Joined cults and they got out. Yes, we'll read a book
Oh,
about
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but not about the leaders of these kind of
Not a
organizations.
cult leader, no.
Just not our thing.
No, but we will read the the documentation from a FOIA request or
Yeah,
where
or
he's being
one of his
sued.
many lawsuits.
Yeah, we'll read those documents. So I don't know Tim Ballard, but I do know that last year he was up and coming because they were making a movie about him. And I've referenced this movie several times because I keep calling it the wrong dude. Uh, Caviezel, that's his
Sure.
name, Caviezel.
Yeah,
It's called
it rhymes with weasel, which
Caviezel.
yeah,
And I think Caviezel is a major contributor to O.U.R also and a main believer in O.U.R.
Mhm.
And I think that's where Tim Ballard kind of does is able to shine. Maybe that's the best way in the way a cult leader can.
I know where you were trying to go with that, and I would just go ahead and say it. What he's good
What
at.
he's good at
Yeah,
is convincing people of his bullshit
and to give money.
and to give them money.
He
Yeah.
is a major like the individual that I was just watching he was a member inside of the O.U.R organization, and he was talking about all of the different things that he would do on like we did this, we did this, we did this. 99% of what they did was fundraising and um, going to places for events and things like that. And there was only one operation now that I think he talked about, and I didn't get to any of the others operations that they got there. They were at this facility, and then it was compromised.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and now on the flip side of that, while they were there, there were families that were what do you call it, adopting
Mhm.
children at this location.
Which is the other side of their organization.
Yeah, and Tim like adopted two kids while he was there, and this one guy was going to adopt two children, then realized they had two more siblings, and he adopted all four, and
Wow.
yeah. So this guy basically he never saw from the initial talk again he could finish up with, and then I was on three or four other operations where I was actually saving children because I haven't seen, and I don't think you've seen any evidence that what they say they do, they have done. It definitely could happen, but we've never seen the information.
No, I think I have a lot of opinions on this. And
Mhm.
first of all, the guy is pretty gross guy,
Mhm.
just in general, my
Yeah.
opinion. All of this is just my opinion. And like I said, I don't know Tim Ballard. I've never met him. And there are people that have talked a lot about him. In fact, there are 2 podcasters that are dedicating a whole podcast about Tim Ballard and all of his bullshit
Yeah.
and are
Yeah.
going deep dive. We're not really going deep dive. We're just
I don't want to be honest.
uh,
These kind of people kinda skeeve me out.
oh, he is so skeevy and so gross. And the more you uncover, the more it's like, "Oh, this is so gross." Like, who
Yeah.
and because he's such a bullshitter and so good at bullshit, he has so many people hoodwinked. He even had the apostles of the Mormon Church hoodwinked
Wow.
completely.
Well, like, this list of the people that he was the this person was meeting was, like, the Steelers, the football team,
Mhm.
coaches. He talked to who's the motivational speaker guy, the real big one, popular one?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. He
Wow.
met with Tony Robbins multiple days, had them do the fire coal walking thing.
Wow.
Um, he met with, all of the people that were in the movie industry that were doing the movie for him. He
Mhm.
was meeting with different senators. So, like, it was like he said for the weeks that he was with him, it changed his life, uh, for the better,
Yeah.
like, for this guy, because it was kinda showing him, like, "Look, these are the people. This is what you could achieve in your life, right?" And that's that's sexy. That's like, yeah, who wouldn't want to be in that situation where you are meeting the movers and shakers of Hollywood and politics and
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah. And you have this amazing story and
Mhm.
amazing message apparently, but it's all built on, from
A
what I
web of
can tell, a web
lies.
of lies,
Mhm.
bullshit and lies.
Well, how about we start with the beginning? Like, what do we know about Tim Ballard? His the
His
Tim
origin.
Ballard, this is your life.
Yeah,
What
so
is
his origin story from what I've gathered
Mhm.
is, and here's the problem is there's not a whole lot of funny about it. This is what I said last week. We did find some funny visions of glory shit, but
Yeah. I
I
think as we go, we'll find something
there's just
funny about
nothing
him.
funny about it. He's just so gross and everything he's done is so horrible in my opinion. It's just
Mhm.
not funny at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, his origin story is that he worked at the CIA and then he worked for the Department of Homeland
Well,
Security.
let's be specific. Let's be specific
This is
because
according to him. This
right.
is his
Well,
story.
that's what I'm saying. Let's be specific because according to him, he was an undercover CIA operative
Okay.
at the time,
Okay.
and that he and basically he was and this is where like he knows not to say something really specific. So what he said was, I was working around an operation that was occurred at the time. He wasn't directly involved in it, but I was an undercover operative or an operative or whatever.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then he went to Homeland Security, and this is another part of the US government is the US government recruits very heavily within the Mormon church.
Mhm.
A lot of FBI, CIA are Mormons. It's just what they do
Yep.
because
Which gives him credit, like this could be a true story.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So then he worked at the Department of Homeland Security. He was working at the Mexico California border,
Mhm.
and then he came across a child who was trafficked and he saved the child, took the child to McDonald's, comforted the child, and realized this was his calling in life and was started O.U.R on the side. And then that became his main thing. And then got the support of the church, wrote a book,
Mhm.
and now we are where we are. And then they made that book into a movie. It's kind of the highlights of his backstory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we rewind and we examine the reality of that backstory, you said you told me this morning he did work at the CIA, but what was his role?
well, let's talk about what he says he is, and then let's talk about what had to been written down. So he's got multiple lawsuits right now against him um from various women
We haven't even
that
discussed
we
this.
haven't got to this
Yeah,
yet, but I'll just say various women
so through the lawsuit you learned
that he so on whenever you're doing lawsuits, you have to disclose factual information. And what he wrote was that he was an unpaid intern. Okay. So this is where it gets interesting is that they were interviewing a guy that works for the CIA, and he said, "There's no such thing as an unpaid intern in the CIA."
Oh,
So even on that form, he lied about that because the reality of what he is even less than an unpaid intern. He's a Chihuahua with the CIA.
oh, he delivered food.
He made coffee and answered the phones.
Like,
Welcome to the CIA. How can I direct your call? That's what Tim Ballard did.
through an organization, like,
No,
through.
no, he was employed with the CIA as a phone answerer.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that's it.
it.
Yeah.
There's no other because and the reason we know this is because one of his inner circle said that Tim had pulled him aside and they were kind of discussing various things about the organization. And he goes, yeah, I just answered phones with the CIA. And the guy that worked for the CIA that doesn't know Tim, never met him, never talked about him. Like he's been with the CIA for like 30 years and never has heard about Tim and the operations that he has done. But he did say that, okay, that right there, that's the only thing that is actually truthful. So there is no such thing as a CIA operative. There is no such thing as a CIA undercover operative.
Mhm,
There is a CIA analyst. There is a CIA uh, field agent,
mhm.
and then there was a third. There was three, and the
There's
third
an
one.
asset
No, no, within the CIA, the
that
assets
actually
are the
works.
people that they turn for the CIA. But for the people that actually are employed by the CIA, that do what you would consider to be CIA's work.
And they don't work in the United States. So,
No, like this
the
would be a Langley job. Like you can be an analyst in Langley,
right,
and he said the analysts are like the bread and butter of CIA.
right,
Those are the people that are in the offices. Those Jack Ryan was an analyst.
right.
He and that's where it gets crazy in those movies is because Jack Ryan would have never have left the office.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he might have done an inspection, and then that's it. It would have been over with at that point. But it's a good story. That and that's
That's Tim Ballard.
Tim Ballard is a good
Good storyteller.
story until he takes that story and he builds a career off of a story that didn't actually exist
Right. So he answered phones
and made coffee.
and made coffee at the CIA, and but then in his backstory, he says he was a CIA operative or
Yeah.
whatever the word he
And
used.
on Facebook, and on Instagram, there were also 3 different titles. So one was a CIA operative, one was a CIA undercover operative, counter operative, operator, or operations operator.
Yeah.
He loves that word. He loves operations.
Operations.
Operator. And
Maybe that's what O.U.R, Operation Underground Railroad.
yeah, probably it could be.
Operator Underground Railroad.
And the thing about it is that operator in the military has uh meaning to it.
Was he ever in the military? I don't think he was. I think he Mormon missionary, probably went to college, probably BYU,
Mhm.
and then went straight into government office.
Could. Could be. Because they were like, "Hey, you're a Mormon, do you wanna come work for the CIA?" And he was like, "Well, I don't have any background in anything, like, you can answer phone calls," and he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Hmm.
Uh,
Maybe he didn't pass the background screening for CIA.
maybe. Now the interesting thing that the guy that worked with the CIA actually said was that, um, there is a very small chance that, um, he like, if he was a field agent with the CIA, which I don't know why he wouldn't have just said, "I'm a field agent." Uh,
Because you can say that once you leave. You just can't say what the missions were.
or you can just say, "I work with the CIA," and that's it.
Mhm.
And then he said, "Well, I can't say what I did because of the NDAs." And the guy from the CIA said, "Well, there's a red flag.
The
We don't do NDAs.
Yeah, that's very clear.
We do secrecy."
Yeah.
There's a term for it, secrecy something.
Yep.
And so again, this
An
could be,
NDA is a very corporate thing.
and that might be like I'm really trying hard to find something that I could go, okay, maybe Tim was part of the CIA. And maybe what he was trying to say was the secrecy thing that nobody knows about, so I'm just gonna say NDA because everybody knows it, but no.
Now everybody knows, like, if you said, "I have a secret clearance 2975,"
Yeah.
it'd be like, "Oh, that's actually more impressive than saying a frickin' NDA."
NDA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that way too. Um, Now, the one thing about Tim Ballard is that he does seems to do a lot of research on, the activities of the CIA, which just means he reads the news.
Yeah.
Because he was actually in front of Congress, and they were asking him about, uh, the same people that are the sex traffickers are also, trafficking in, um, terrorists.
Hmm.
And he goes, "Yes, because of this person that was brought in." And they're like, "Yeah, exactly." So, he does have at least, you know, he researches, he Googles things.
He Googles things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
think
have to do with
yeah.
the field.
Yep, we'll get to that.
Mhm,
Alright, so he's already lied about his apparently, his involvement with CIA.
mhm,
It just doesn't make sense. And then he went on to Homeland Security, and his whole backstory, the first time I heard it, I was like, "This doesn't seem right."
mm,
None of it seems right. The fact that an agent would take a child to McDonald's and not involve CPS, just the first time I heard it, I'm like, "This doesn't feel
yeah,
procedural at
yeah.
all." Like,
So,
it's
like,
like
this agent
something's
just goes, "Hey,
broken here.
kid," and grabs the kid and takes him to
So
McDonald's and,
what
like,
he, like,
from away from the
yeah.
crime scene or whatever,
With
yeah.
no documentation
Mhm.
about that, like, this kid's already in this horrible situation, and you just made it a million times worse by trafficking him to McDonald's?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah,
there are procedures in
yeah.
place to help children, and the first one would be
They
CPS.
usually have, like, someone come by and
Yeah.
speak to them while in the custody, like, so the whole McDonald's thing, I think is accurate, that a someone that was trafficked was taken to McDonald's, but it was with the team of the CIA that was there, plus a support because they would've if their whole
Well, the
thing was
CIA wouldn't have gotten involved, that's an
no, I mean,
American
like, they
thing.
would have been there to with the agent, the
That's America. CIA is external from
well, that's a good
America,
point too.
so CIA wouldn't have been involved. So, Homeland Security that was monitoring the border, and he was part of that
Yeah, that's
organization that
true.
monitored the border, and, I mean, you could
So it would have been Homeland Security there. Yeah, I misspoke on
oh,
who
okay,
would have been.
okay.
But there would have been the let's just make it clear, the border agents.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
border agents would have been there with this kid.
with
They
CPS.
right, or with it might not have been specifically CPS, but maybe an agency within Homeland Security that does the same thing. Don't
So,
know.
it would have
Don't
been
know.
somebody from Child Protective, so if you're not in the States, CPS is Child Protective Services.
Mhm.
So, it would have been somebody who had experience
Like a
with
child
trafficking,
psychologist
child
and yep.
psychologists that would have been on staff that they would have pulled in to navigate the situation.
Yep.
So I think this is just hypothetical, what my opinion based on everything I've seen and
I would
heard
just own it.
is what I think happened.
Everything in this thing, everything we say is our opinion. So
I, I think this is what happened. I think he happened to work and this child was in this horribly abusive situation, and the child was an American citizen,
mhm.
was not a foreign citizen, was an
Yep.
American citizen that they were taking across the border for whatever reason. Who knows? Because he was in such a horrible situation. Somebody at border saw it and said, "This is fishy."
Yeah.
Pulled them aside at the border and then got the details that this kid was being abused.
Right.
At that point, they
Also, grandfather or
I
something
think
like that,
so,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
that point, they would have arrested the grandfather, taken the child into child protective custody, given the child some comfort. They might have taken him to McDonald's
Yes.
on the way to go to where he would be fostered for a little
Or
bit.
there's a McDonald's like right near the border entrance or something like that. That's my thought. It's just it's like right next
It's
door
such
or
a
something.
weird detail. It's
It
just
is a
such a
weird
weird
detail.
detail that doesn't fit with how those procedures work.
I think what he's trying to get across was showing how wholesome he was.
Oh, he's so gross.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
But
it's like
I don't think he was part of that at all. I think he might have been there when that
That's what I mean.
happened.
Yeah.
I don't think he was part of that process.
No.
I think there was another agent that saw this thing and said something doesn't feel right and then called the
Was he answering
authorities.
phones
He
for
might
Homeland
have been
Security?
answering phones on Homeland Security. That would've been funny, right?
And he got the call
He
that
wasn't
said,
even an
"We got a
agent,
boy that's being trafficked."
and he just answered the phone call.
He
"Hello,
went to
Homeland Security,
McDonald's.
how may I
He
help
went to
you?"
McDonald's for coffee
He brought them all coffee. He's a Uber driver.
at
He
the
just
Homeland Security Uber
Homeland
driver.
Security Uber driver.
There's always something funny that can
Yeah,
be said about.
yeah, because none of that feels legitimate.
Yeah.
Like, when he tells his backstory, I'm like, "Okay, this doesn't feel legitimate at all." But he tells it in such a way that he draws people in,
Mhm.
and they believe that bullshit, and he's telling very naive people who don't think critically. He's telling this to other cult members in the Mormon Church who
Well,
and
it's
I have been in this situation
yeah.
where because you're already don't think critically, your brain turns off, so when someone comes and feeds you bullshit like this,
They're just like, "Oh, sign us
you're
up."
like, oh, yeah, that's true, yeah," because your critical thinking is shut off by being in a cult.
But the thing about it is that it wasn't just the church.
No, I know, he was doing it to everybody, so
It the issue is that this kind of goes into other propaganda that is going around the time, which is that we have this massive influx of sex trafficked children that their blood is being drained, they're being eaten, and there's a ring of pedophiles inside of,
yeah,
the government.
which is all conspiracy. In fact, even so, a legitimate news that happened in the last week, because we're in the middle of this political cycle right now in 2024, was that about 230,000 children have been lost
Mhm,
by Homeland Security and by immigration.
mhm,
Now, how they're classifying those children, I think could be like under 18, right? So a lot
mhm,
of them could have aged out. Like they crossed the border when they were 15 and then they were 18 and they aged out.
right.
Um, but if you just did the math, that's a like even if there was just 10,000 children under the age of 12, that's a big number
Yeah.
that they've lost. And then one of the political candidates got in front of people and said, 235,000 children have been lost and most of them are dead. Yeah, they're probably all dead now. I mean, there's no evidence to prove any of that.
Yeah.
I think it's just they go with their parents and then they're not accounted for. They're
Yeah.
not followed up on.
Right, or
But if they're really being
the people are
trafficked.
trying to not let their the government find these
Yeah,
kids too.
exactly.
So, n
It's
I
a
don't wanna.
weird number. It's a legitimate number that came out of Homeland Security. And I think a lot of people will use that number and say those kids are being trafficked
Mhm.
when that's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah,
But
whatever the number is, if it is more than
1,
0, no, if it's more than 0, if it's 1, it's too much.
it is
It's too much. But stick with the facts
sick.
of the situation.
Yep.
If it's 100,000 kids, then yeah, do something about it. Figure it out. If it's 1,000,000 kids, what the hell are we doing?
But
We
there's
can do
no
better.
real solid evidence.
Right, because if 1,000 kids got through, you like, what do you do? Like, a you're talking to the sex traffickers after the fact, "Well, how many kids did you bring in yesterday?" "Oh, we brought in 1,000." Nobody knows that. So if they're getting through, you don't know. You're only able to count the ones that you catch, and that's it.
And how many have they actually caught? And I'm saying
Mhm.
crossing the American border, like
Yep.
from Canada or at
Or
the
on
airport,
planes or
or
wherever.
like
Yep.
how many have they actually caught a and I'm saying like children, like under 12,
Mhm.
like or under 16. How many have they really caught? And I don't think any of at least I've never seen any maybe it's out there, but I've never seen any number like that.
So, with the amount of conspiracy theories around sex trafficking, that number would be plastered everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
If it was a outrageous number. And again, I want to be very clear that I'm not making light of these numbers, but for me, the most important thing is that the numbers are represented correctly, even within the organization. If the CIA is coming back and saying it's some outrageous number and it's not, then they need to be held accountable. If they're saying the opposite too. So if they're saying, well, it was only 300 kids last year
No,
and it
that's
was like 400,000 or something like that, then they need to be held accountable. So, but what we need is accurate numbers from all sides, and I think that that's also where uh, Tim Tim Ballard uh, pushes the envelope
mhm.
because he's making it out to be that it's millions
Yeah. Yep.
and upon millions that are being brought in, and so
Et Go ahead, sorry.
yeah, and what that feels to me is let's amplify the numbers so that we can get support for our organization to do the actions, and it's like, look, even if the numbers are only 10,000, that's enough for us to say, fix this.
Yeah.
We need to fix this issue. You don't have to amplify the numbers to get support.
But
Nobody's against this,
yeah, well, and that's the thing is, like, nobody is against it, but he's using bullshit things
Mhm.
to fund an organization when there may not even have been a problem, like a
Yeah,
real problem
yeah.
with trafficking to the United States.
Sure, but we can all agree that there is a number. It cannot be 0. It has there has to be a number. We know that it occurs in around the world and the United States. So
But more
there's
often than
Mhm.
not, it's family members.
I'm with you. I'm right
And
there
I
with
would
you.
say like 99.9% of the
Just
time, it's
just
family
like child
members
abductions. It's
that are trafficking children.
typically whenever a child is abducted or kidnapped, it is a family member
Yep.
that does it. It is not a stranger. So, but that doesn't mean that you give strangers a pass because it's statistically lower. And it's the same thing here. Just because the number might not be a high number doesn't mean we give it a pass and we allow it to happen. But what we need to see is that this is a systemic issue within the CIA that they are doing nothing to help these children that are being sex trafficked. And I don't feel that that is the case.
I just don't think the CIA is responsible for this. I just I don't even
I
know
think for the organizations that are trying to do it and bring in or bring out,
Yes.
yes, they would be responsible for that. But ultimately, the action I think would be Homeland Security. That would be
Yeah.
dealing with them as they're doing it. But CIA would give information like, "Hey, this drug cartel is trying to traffic in, these people," and then they would hand it over, and then
Yeah.
another task force would be involved in actually retrieving the children or stopping it or whatever.
I think what feels really gross also is this whole story about saving children and then starting, an adoption agency at the same time.
Yeah, that is
It's
weird.
it's like, that's so gross.
Mhm.
At
Yep.
what point are you trafficking children? We're adopting. Like, it feels
Yeah.
almost exactly the same.
What was there was another country, I think it was Russia, that they were the adoption rates from Russia were, like, just
And
skyrocketing.
then they were like, "No."
And then yeah, because Russia was like, "You're stealing our
Yep.
children." We we have people here that want to adopt as well, and we can't because it's going to the highest bidder.
Yep.
It was just you're literally even trying to help out and support orphan children in Russia, which is, like, if you on the surface is very noble, but look at what occurs. Like, why are you able to get children for cheaper? Because you have to pay them to get these adopted children. You could get them cheaper from Russia than from another country.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's occurring there that's keeping these children from being adopted? Is it a problem there that's occurring? It's a very, I don't want to stop anybody from adopting a child because it's noble and it's something that I don't think I could ever do. Well, I think I could, but I've got 2 children of my own, and I don't know if I have the patience to have an adopted child. So the people that adopt children to me are saints. They really are. Like, I think really highly of them. But when you're taking them from other countries, it's like you got to look at what's occurring there, because that is to me, like you said, another form of trafficking children. And it might be for a positive thing, like you're trying to help, but it's the same thing. Tim Ballard was trying to help.
Yeah. It's weird. It feels like he is becoming what he was trying to prevent. It's just such a
Hard to
weird
stop.
story.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's such a weird story.
It is.
So, the Mormon Church had backed Tim Ballard
Mhm.
completely. One thing I learned through all of this, which I didn't realize, is that the Mormon Church has 12 apostles, which is like their quorum of leaders,
Oh, interesting.
which I was thinking is really funny because, I lived in Utah. I dated a Smith at one time. So I know a lot about the Mormon Church, but there's this whole undercurrent of secret Mormon Church.
Yes.
There's like Mormon Church, and then there's like
Mormon
secret,
church.
secret. And they have these 12 apostles that lead the
Mhm.
organization, and these 12 apostles can secretly ordain people or bless people, or I don't, there's a word for it.
Hmm.
Um, and this is what how Lori Vallow felt. She was secretly ordained and she could do whatever she wanted to. And essentially what they do is they give them this blessing and it gives them the free pass to do whatever they want to.
Wow.
And I think Tim Ballard was given this secret, and I think it's tied to money. So however much money you give to the Mormon Church, like if you donate millions of dollars in your tithing to the Mormon Church, they give you
Mhm.
this secret blessing that nobody else knows about because they're not able to donate millions of dollars, and that gives you a free pass to do whatever you want in this lifetime.
So it's like the Supreme Court. You just give them a lot of money and then you get a free pass for
Yeah, if you're
doing
Clarence
stuff.
Thomas, yeah.
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 Or and a bunch of other ones. But anyways,
Getting
um,
political because 'cause we're in a
well, I mean,
political
so it's gonna get political because Tim Ballard turned this into a political statement.
yeah.
Um, so well, let's
So, okay, so
yeah.
he w had very close ties with the president of these 12 apostles,
Mhm.
whose name is also Ballard. He's
No
like
relation.
priesthood Ballard or bishopric Ballard, or I don't know. He's
Yeah, one of those words.
high
Yeah.
priest Ballard. I don't know what they call him. He's he's the leader of the Mormon
Czar. He's Czar
Tsar
Ballard. Yeah,
Ballard.
might as well.
Yeah, and him and Tim Ballard became very close. In fact, it was the leader Ballard that opened up the books and pretty much told Tim Ballard who to reach out to for donations
Oh
within the Mormon
wow.
Church. It didn't
Wow.
reveal tithing to him, but told him who were the most generous in the Mormon Church. So Tim Ballard quickly went to those people with his message and was getting millions of
And
dollars.
again, who's against it? Nobody would be like,
Nobody's
"Oh,
against
you
it.
wanna stop, you know, pedophile rings in the United States?" No, no, I'm against that. I prefer them around. Like, nobody's gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was another so once he has the money to do that,
yeah,
then he's got the organization of the Mormon Church and the leadership of the
mhm.
Mormon Church behind him. This dude's
And
unstoppable.
because he technically did work for the CIA, he's also got that clout as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Because the CIA, let's say that there was an HR department that was like, did he work for the CIA? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Did he
Uh,
work for Homeland Security? Yes, he did.
yeah. Well, we don't we're assuming that, right? Have we heard from Homeland Security that he worked for them?
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was at the border when this happened as an agent. I just don't think that he was
The
the
agent
agent. I
himself.
think
Yeah.
he was like we were saying earlier,
The
the
Chaiwala.
chai getting the
Yeah.
coffee for everyone. I don't think he took it. I think he co-opted that story, refined it, changed it a little bit, and then that became his backstory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with all of the
Or
backing
he was one of many agents that was there when the kid met with DCS that took him to McDonald's, and he was like outside the building just chatting with another Homeland Security agent. I mean, these things don't happen in a vacuum, and
yeah.
there's tons of people involved. And for him to single handedly take the kid to McDonald's, that's the part where it's just like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
that's just not
Yeah,
there's something wrong's there.
yeah. It's almost like you can see it as a movie playing out, right? Like he's sitting down with this kid, and he buys the kid a milkshake, sets it in front. It's like, tell me, son. what happened?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's what was going on in his head was kind of this movie kind of thing,
Yeah.
like because he created this whole story
And he
into a
created a
movie.
movie. Yeah, wrote the book and then created the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and who does that?
Jeez.
Seriously.
I I, I don't know. All right. So I keep hitting my microphone.
Yeah.
Where we are right now is that several lawsuits have been filed against Tim Ballard accusing him of sexual misconduct
Mhm,
because and this is this is what I think he's doing. I think he's taking these naive Mormon moms,
mhm.
telling them, "We're gonna help save children," and they have children and they wanna help be part of the mission. He's taking them he's taking them to foreign countries.
Oh, is he doing like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing?
Yeah.
Like you're my my wife
"You're
or
my sexy wife."
yeah.
Yeah, and then he's putting them in sexual situations that they can't get out of.
Mhm.
They're not helping children.
No.
They're just down there. So he's he's essentially trafficking moms.
Yeah.
He's a
That
mom
is
sex trafficker.
that is technically sex trafficking
He's taking them across country lines to Mexico, Haiti, wherever whatever country, getting them to go to brothels, putting them in compromising
Mhm.
situations,
Yep.
telling them, "You're gonna fall in love with me,"
Mhm.
and then trying to have sex with them, and because he's already been ordained by the Mormon Church, because he can do whatever he wants to,
Yep.
and they're being coerced in this situation, and then he also plays the guilt card on them too.
Yeah.
"If you don't do this,
People are gonna die.
children are gonna die.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be able to save these children.
Oh my
You
gosh.
need to sleep with me because if you don't, children are
It's
gonna
gonna
die."
blow our cover
Yeah.
and yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when they refuse and they come back, he blames them and says, "You're the reason we didn't save children," even though their mission was flawed and ridiculous
From
from
the
the
beginning.
start.
Yeah.
And then he's got to cover because he'll come back and say, "It's the women because they didn't play their part good enough or they refused to have
Wow.
sex with me that we couldn't save these children."
Wow.
That's what I think he's doing. So I think
Yeah.
he's creating this whole story arc, and then he's coming back on podcasts and going, "If it wasn't for these lawsuits and these women, we'd save more children." But they've never saved any children
Well,
anyway.
hold on. Let's go back on this one too, because the the guy that I was listening to said that he was on two operations with them. Okay, so the first one was I think it was Cancun or something like that that
Mm.
they went to, and then they get there and it's like, oh, our cover is blown. So instead, let's just go over to this facility where we're doing a fundraiser. It was that. It was literally that, and
And did they
uh
have prostitutes with them?
probably,
Yeah.
he didn't say that, but they did have where they were, um and it might not have been Cancun. He mentioned like 3 or 4 different places and then didn't say really where they were, but the second place he did. Um, and then that's where, Tim Ballard adopted a couple of kids from Mexico and took the kids back to United States,
Wow.
basically.
Yeah.
And there was another one that was like a family, and the guy was like all gung ho because it's like, "Look, we're saving kids here." It's like, you're in Cancun. You're like, where are you getting these kids from?
Yeah.
From the streets of Cancun? Like,
Yeah.
that's very odd.
It is very odd.
But you're saving children, so you take all of your critical thinking and throw it out the door because you're doing good for these children.
And he's coercively controlling you and
Yeah.
controlling the situation and controlling the narrative.
Yeah. And then the second place that he said, and I didn't get to that story. I didn't get to that story, but there was, um, but he said that they did save like a girl from there, from this place, and I think it's a place that starts with like a P or something like that. Um, well, shortly thereafter, like within the past couple of weeks, I think that little girl is suing Tim Ballard for
Is she a little
falsifying.
girl or is she
I think she's like now like
she's 18, so at the time she would have been
like underage or something like that.
underage, like
Yeah.
16, and I'm not it's wrong,
Yeah.
but the way that he's describing these children is like she was 10
Yeah, I don't
and
think so. I think she's probably like 17 now or something like
Yeah.
that. Because,
So
you
she's
know,
suing him.
she's suing him for falsifying that she was sex trafficked
Mhm.
and used her to instigate this operation.
Yep.
So the one person that this guy says that they saved wasn't actually being sex trafficked, and I don't know the whole story, but if he brought her over state lines, he trafficked her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And also, I think what he's doing there too, not only is he putting these Mormon moms in these horrible situations
Mhm.
and coercively controlling them and abusing them, I think what he's doing too is he's entrapping desperate families.
Mm,
So he'll get a mom and say, "You need to sell your daughter to me because she's in this desperate situation,"
yeah,
and forcing someone to sell their children to him.
right, because I'm saving them from this horrible situation.
This white
They're gonna
savior
be sex
complex.
trafficked anyway, so again, I'm saving them before they get sex trafficked.
Yeah, by putting a lot of pressure on a
Yeah,
family to do something.
yeah,
The whole operation is just everything when you step back and you think critically about it, it just feels gross, it looks gross, and
mhm,
it is gross.
yep, yep. Yeah, that's interesting. So, how does his actions deal with visions of glory and what we see there, other than him being a flaming narcissist, which seems to be that everybody that starts to believe this book becomes, maybe not becomes, but amplifies the narcissism. But I can kind of see it with this book that you would be a narcissist afterwards because it's all about you. It's
Yeah,
all about you saving the world
and I think
or
that's what, that I think he was on track to become an apostle in the Mormon church religion.
mm,
They want him to have high government office. They want him to I think they think he's gonna become the president of the United States, but the guy
mm.
is there's I just can't see it.
Well, the video that I saw was that he was on Fox News, and this was after Tucker Carlson, so year and a half ago maybe,
That makes
and
sense because it would have been early part of 2023 when the movie was released, and he would have done a whole lot of press junkets.
right, and so he was on Fox News, and what they asked him was, you know, here is your story, and your story is about ending these pedophile sex rings that are occurring, and yet everybody's against you. Well, why is everybody against you? And he was like, well, that's the question that you got to ask, right? Is, you know, why would people be worried about stopping this, stopping me from ending these things? Well, maybe it's because the people that are trying to stop me are the ones being accused of eating children and all this other stuff
Mm,
that the QAnon. So
wow.
he's spouting QAnon conspiracy theories on Fox News. So he's not only a Visions of Glory guy, he's a Q guy
Wow.
as well. On top of it, he's going on Fox News talking about how uh, the liberals are stopping his operation, and there was no evidence that they're stopping the operation. He's referring to why they don't want to watch the movie, like, or why they're saying bad things about the movie.
Was it a terrible I didn't even see the movie.
Well, apparently it was pretty decent. I mean, it
But
had
it's not realistic, though. Anybody who has any experience with children or with standard operating procedures of the government would know this is not real.
and I think that's the issue is that they're looking at the movie, they're going, "This movie does not dictate reality," and he was like, "Why are you against our operations ending sex trafficking?"
Yeah.
And it's like, "Well, it's a movie."
And
It's
you're not following the right procedures
right.
with really helping children.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were really helping children, you would have child psychologists, you would have people you would have really clear boundaries for the Mormon moms that are coming to help you. You wouldn't be trying to get laid all the time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be sleeping with
Well,
prostitutes.
okay for that, but, maybe you would be trying to get laid all the time, just, don't shame his kinks now,
I
come
mean,
on, but
I just go to the worst place. Like, he has exactly become what he was fighting, and maybe he started
He's
off.
lived long enough to become the thing he's been fighting
Yeah,
against,
it's
sort of
very
thing.
weird.
It is.
He is absolutely 100% a villain.
Mhm.
He is a villain,
Yeah.
but
And
I
he's a
don't
villain that was trying to run for Senate too.
yeah, I don't think he started off as a villain, though.
No, I don't think so
I
either.
think he started off with the right intention, thought he thought he could really help, but
I
it's
think is when
way
he
more complicated.
and I think is when he read Visions of Glory, to be honest with you.
And then he realized he was some saint from the
Right. He's
LDS
the chosen.
God, chosen
Mhm.
chosen specifically by Elder Ballard.
And again, Mormon Church steps in and goes,
Yep.
"Yep, go for it.
Yeah.
We are giving you full access to do whatever the hell you want to."
And we're giving you millions of dollars.
Mhm. Yep. And by the way, you should run for, office as well, which well, like, what the hell?
And then he became a villain.
You know who he reminds me of is I can't remember his name. I think he was the Australian guy. The Australian guy that was gonna hike across Africa, no, not Africa, South America. They were gonna walk across South America and they're gonna raise money for the children. Do you remember
Oh,
that
that weird
documentary?
documentary. No, he wasn't Australian, he's, South African.
South African. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing.
God, seriously, you're gonna get us canceled. Jesus.
So it reminds me a lot of that, right? Which is this extreme narcissist was like, I'm gonna do this for the children, was the whole time talking about how much he was a saint and how awesome he was and that nobody understood him.
Mhm.
And pushed these people almost to death. And for no reason too. Like he was literally going a long way around certain areas just to, make it look better on camera. And even at one point flew back home and took a rest and came back and
Yeah.
was like, I'm still on the trail. I'm
Yeah.
still doing this.
Yeah, that was a good documentary.
And then at the end, he gave none of the money to the children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Was cancer.
yeah,
Cancer for yeah.
yeah. He reminds me exactly
Yeah.
of that person,
Yep.
which is,
And then
this
when
is
you
not about the children. This is about me.
it's all about him. It is
Mhm.
absolutely about him and his ambition for power and his using this story to gain influence and power.
Yep.
And and then taking it badly when he's being criticized.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if he's doing the work that he's doing, one, you're going to expect criticism from everybody.
Mhm.
Like you're not doing it right. You're doing it the wrong way, and you're going to have like people that do it as well that are trying to save children. Arguing with you on whatever. But at the end of the day, it'd be like I don't care about all that because we're doing good work. And here, let's talk to the children that I've saved.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
like that is the message that if he was actually doing what he said he was doing would be super easy to do, which is to show the children that he has saved and like, look, we found a home. This tell your story.
Not the children he's trafficked into adoption,
No, 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 no,
but
no, no,
the
no, no.
actual children
Children
he
that he saved
saved from these
from sex
sex
trafficking.
trafficking.
Yep. Because he's not going through he's not going through
Legitimate organization.
yeah, through Homeland Security, CIA, FBI. Maybe he is, but we
I
don't
don't
hear
think so,
about it.
no.
Yeah. So this would be a very, very simple thing, which is just literally like I'm not saying utilizing these kids more, but just like here's a count. Here's numbers. Here's
Even if, like, yeah, if you had the numbers or if you had the child psychologist, like, you had a legitimate child psychologist
on
on
staff.
staff
Yeah.
that could say, "Yes, I met with these children, their names are redacted, their names are
Yep.
their ages, everything, where they went, what happened to them is redacted, but I can verify
Yep.
that we have helped these children, and here are my
I'm
receipts."
a board certified child psychologist. I assisted these kids through their traumatic
Yep.
time. Nope. So, like, what are you doing with the kids after you rescue
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
You just dumping them
Like,
somewhere? Like,
there's this whole thing, like, where are they? Like,
yeah,
did you traffic them back to the United States or and then also another thing I
or back to their countries illegally, like,
yeah, or he's also taking credit for other organizations' work too. So he'll
That doesn't surprise me.
so he'll find news articles. He's good at Google, like, I think he's got a good Google alert, right?
Yeah.
So, he's got this Google alert, and anytime there's a trafficking ring that's broken, he's taking credit for it.
You know, if you ever were to look at that Google alert search that he has, it probably looks real sketchy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, what is
Children for sale, sex
Yeah.
trafficking, you know?
Ah,
Like, what are you doing?
what is this? Yeah. And, uh, another really funny thing too is I saw a video of him recently, and he
Mhm.
was in a car being driven, and he's like, "And I'm running, and I'm fleeing, and I'm running for
Oh,
office."
that's right.
And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's just talking." But then he goes on to say, "I'm in Mexico." And we've been to Mexico several times, and
Mhm.
I've been to Mexico more than you, and I've driven through Mexico. Like, I know Mexico. The stuff in his rearview mirror was a suburb in Utah.
Yeah.
That was not Mexico at all.
Well, not
So when he said that, I
okay.
was like,
Well,
"What? What?"
again. I love playing devil's advocate. Let's just say that there's some subdivisions in Mexico
That
that
looked like
look like
Utah.
this, but that's not where you would find a ring of sex traffickers that you're going to rescue and be chased away from. Like,
It's like he just throws this stuff out and thinks that no one is gonna critically look at it.
yeah, but we don't do critical thinking in this country anymore. So I think he might be onto something.
Yeah. Yeah, we should just start.
If you say something enough times, people start believing you.
Yeah, isn't that a Lennon quote?
I think it is actually. Holy crap. We're screwed.
John Lennon?
Oh, that Lennon.
Oh,
Yeah. Lennon, not Lennon. Okay. Okay. So Tim has uh he's running for Senate. I'm guessing in Utah. Is like
I don't know this. This is
yeah.
something I don't know anything about. I
Yeah.
just know he's running for an office that and I think the Mormon Church has disowned him. Have they?
Mm, I haven't heard that one. Yay or nay. But they're like the videos online of like the YouTube comments, people are like, "Bless you, Tim, for all the work that you've done." And that like was like 11 months ago. And someone 10 months ago said, "Wow, that comment didn't age well."
Yeah. I don't know if he's been excommunicated by the Mormon Church or if they've just
They don't tend to do that though.
they
Like
excommunicate people,
not yeah,
but not visions of glory people, they don't.
right. That's what I mean. Like they didn't did they excommunicate the Valos?
Mhm.
Did they really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. So at what point was it? Before or after?
I don't know.
Probably
Probably
after.
after they found the children.
Yeah. They're
Well,
like,
they did.
"Oh, that's what you mean by they're bad. Oh, okay."
But they still endorse that Visions of Glory book, and Tim Ballard,
Well, yeah, they said that they didn't.
we don't. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Don't you know? Hmm. Is
As
he a
like
goer? Is he a goer?
but, you know,
Yeah, I don't
they
know.
say
Like,
that, but
leave it in the
as soon as it
comments
makes
if you
money.
know.
Yeah.
Did Tim Ballard get excommunicated by the church? I don't know if he did or officially or not,
Yeah.
because they should, but, the church doesn't really do what but it's
Right thing.
embarrassing. I mean, if you
Mhm.
imagine you from the highest levels supported this dude, and he ends up to be a sex trafficker himself and an abuser, like, that's just embarrassing
When does the Mormon Church change procedure?
when it hits them financially, and that's all cults.
True, true.
The only way to get them to change is when it affects their public image because that affects
Right, right.
their financials.
Because this is like, it just seems that every week now we're getting something new about the Mormon Church having an issue with their members doing something crazy.
Yeah.
And like, I wanna bring this back again to like the message around Tim Ballard and coming from me specifically is that if he's doing the job that he says he's doing, I'll take back some of my comments. But even if he is, that does not excuse sexual assault. It does not excuse trafficking of children, even if it's in your mind good. Because trafficking is trafficking. It doesn't matter where on the spectrum you lie. So if you're taking them from their country to our country because they're going to be treated better, that is trafficking. It doesn't matter if in your mind they're going to a better place. So even if he is rescuing children, he doesn't get a pass on everything else that's occurred. And he needs to be held accountable for this stuff. And there's genetic, apparently, his genetic material is on one of the women's dresses that was from, yeah, I know.
Clinton
I know.
style.
Don't. I don't even want to bring that up. She's had too much shit on her. Like,
No, Clinton is the one that just
Clinton's the sexual assaulter.
yeah. She our first major online bullying for
Yeah.
her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. And it's the same thing. Like, I don't care like all the organizations that Bill Clinton has done and all the good that he's done. He still paid money to keep people quiet. He still isn't a sexual assaulter. And I don't think he's ever gotten any punishment for
No.
any of those crimes.
No.
So, same thing. Like, he was at the DNC and I was looking at him like, ugh,
So gross.
it is gross.
Yep.
So, you don't get free passes if you do 99 good things and you do one really horrible thing, you don't get a free pass on the one horrible thing.
Well, in my opinion, Tim Ballard is a pretty horrible
I think it's probably the opposite for him. 99 bad things, one good
one
thing.
good thing. I don't even know the one good thing. Like, he co-opted
I'm sure he, like, you know,
I don't think he's done
walked
one.
the old lady across the street once in his life,
I just don't get that impression he's
gave
done
money to the
one.
church.
Yeah, he's given money to the church, most definitely. I think everything he's done has been co-opted. He's co-opted other people's
Mhm.
stories, other people's work, and he's done it in the name of the Mormon Church. They're trying to scrub it because they're trying to get more money from fundamentalist Christians,
Yep.
but it's in the name of the Mormon Church. And he
And then he's attacking anybody that disagrees with
yeah,
him,
yeah. Or
not the organization. No, I have not heard a single person say that the the what the railroad is trying to do is bad. Nobody, I have never
mm-mm,
heard that. It
it's
is
him,
against him.
Tim Ballard. And I think they removed him from O.U.R. So now he's like totally off on his own. So I
um,
think O.U.R. now is separate than Tim
and
Ballard.
they're probably going, "Oh my god, we've got a ton of resources and we haven't done shit.
Let's start
Let's
doing
start doing some good. So maybe some good will come out of his horrible start."
yeah, yeah. But Tim Ballard is the villain.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for watching,
Yep.
and, like and subscribe. We are almost to 1,000,
Hey, we
so
need 88 more
we're so
subscribers.
close to 1,000.
If you guys are watching this and you're not subscribed, just give us this freebie, please. We we're so close.
We're so close.
And we need your help and we need your support and we
But it
really
it
would
has been
appreciate
a
it.
fun journey
Yes.
this last few months. This has been something I wasn't expecting. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting to get 1,000 really being this close, so this is a lot of
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
a lot of
And
fun.
we really appreciate you guys. So thank you so much.
Alright. Think for yourself, don't be sheep.